And drawing on a market cities framework, Marina's plenary will discuss the vital role of community-focused market infrastructure for transforming sustainable agriculture into equitable food systems. And in fact, a key initiative that she's bringing to us in Toronto this summer, where I would invite anyone who is able to attend to do so, is in June 2023. She's bringing the International Public Markets Conference, and that international initiative, which has helped transform cities like Barcelona and London into viable market cities to Toronto. So over to Marina. Can Toronto become a market city, and why is this important? Thank you.
Awesome. Buenos días a todos. Estoy acá desde Buenos Aires. La imagen que está atrás es el Mercado de las Pulgas en la Plaza Dorrego. So, welcome everybody. My name is Marina Queirolo. I'm in Buenos Aires visiting my family. I'm really sad that I'm not there with you guys. I really thrive much more when I present in person and I can engage and see who's in the room and draw connections. Many of the people that are in that room are my partners, my supporters, have been part of this work that I'm going to be talking to you today. So I wish I was there with you guys. I want to start first and foremost with a land acknowledgement. I want to respectfully acknowledge that the work that we're doing in Toronto public markets is in the traditional territory of many indigenous nations. Toronto has been cared by Anishinaabe nations, Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, and the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit Nations. As Joe alluded, I'm an immigrant in Toronto, so I'm in this journey of learning about Indigenous peoples and the legacy of colonialism, the impact on their foodways. And I really, I'm honored every time I'm in a room with a land elder or an Indigenous person that helps me understand how they want to participate in the public market working group and in the larger work that we want to be in Toronto, we want to build in Toronto. So thanks for everyone that has contributed. And for me, it's really important that we anchor this work in the ecology of our place, in stewardship of the land, and building relationships with people, because that's what markets do. They build connections and social connections in place. Joe told a little bit of my story, and that's what I bring every time I come to a meeting, I come to my work. I'm a practitioner. I am a person that wants to do things. I'm a doer, and I do and learn all the time. For me, there's not, the idea of failure does not exist. We're all in this journey of learning and doing together, and my research is done that way. I want to draw some connections with Erin's work and the presentation. Thanks, Erin, for leading the chart. I think for me, it's really interesting when we talk about farmers and their voice, as well as them leading alternatives for accessing customers or increasing their sales. That's what markets do. Markets enable local supply chains, but also it's really important to recognize that markets are at its core about diversity. And we talk about diversity of seeds, diversity of crops, diversity of people, and diversity of cultures. And that's why there's a lot of alignment when we think about rebuilding our mid-size food distribution infrastructure, or as Joe said, the missing middle, that we recognize that for us to transition to a sustainable food system, we need to think about all the aspects of our food system. And farmers are one aspect, local aggregators, processors are another aspect. And what I decided to focus, because of my experience, is on the retail. And so I want you to put that retail hat when you see that this presentation. It's about how do we integrate retail that enables short supply chains and enables regional supply. And that's what a market city framework is. So I was fortunate to visit. So my journey with market cities and the market city framework started many, many years ago. I was fortunate to visit Barcelona to participate in the conference that we're going to bring to Toronto next year. Barcelona is a perfect example of a market city. And the question to the group is, which type of city would you like to live in? A centralized city, a decentralized city, or a distributed city? And so for me, a distributed model is about, again, going back to this diversity, equity, inclusion, 50-minute cities. There's many ways of saying why a distributed approach is about sustainability. And so in Barcelona, I was lucky to understand that a city that has 47 neighborhoods and has 43 markets that embed markets as part of their social infrastructure is an example that we should look into and explore more. And while we recognize that Toronto will never be a Barcelona because each market city is different in itself, what we can learn is that we need to understand that all markets need to work together in all its different shapes. And it is about the inclusion and the diversity of all the different types of markets we have in our city. And so this is the presentation about making visible that infrastructure and a few examples that allow us to explore pathways of doing this work that will take many, many, many years. So I'm going to start with some frameworks, again, to bring everybody into the conversation. I apologize for those that have already seen this, because I've spoken a couple of times. UFT Scarborough has been, and the Culinaria program has been a great partner. I've worked with some of your students, so many of you might have seen this already. So I'm going to move fast, but please take down notes and follow up questions. I love having conversations after. So market cities are networks. And are networks that enable that local distribution. On the right-hand side, I sort of brought the principle. So I worked with Project for Public Spaces, which is sort of the organization that hosts the International Public Conferences. It's a non-for-profit for New York. They've been working in the area of placemaking and markets for almost 50 years. And they started this concept of market cities, and they launched it in Barcelona. And so together with them in a project we led in, we did together in 2019, we developed the principles for a market city. And I will walk you through some of the principles, but the framework that I visualized on the right-hand side, it's making the connection that market cities are anchored in neighborhoods, then they scale to cities, then they scale to regions. And our understanding is that we want to grow a global network of cities that are working towards building this infrastructure, or building it or making it visible, because in many cases, markets already exist, but as alternatives, they're not sort of seen by the dominant groups as a viable solution to localizing our supply chains. So again, in bringing everybody on board, how do we bring everybody on board into the conversation? When I started talking about public markets 10 years ago in the city of Toronto, people would immediately default into farmers markets. And farmers markets are a type of public market, but for me, public markets, it's a larger umbrella. And for us to actually start working and mapping and understanding and advocating for public markets, we need to understand what we're talking about. And so for me, public markets happen in the public realm, sometimes in the private. So it becomes complex and messy, like everything that we do in food and when we work at a systems level. But they do all have to have a public goal. So the question that I'm often asked is, are food halls part of public markets? Yes, if they're doing it correctly. And we can speak about what doing it correctly is. For me, when we talk about public markets, they need to provide local economic development. They need to be inclusive to different types of vendors. They need to link with a rural economy. They need to advance city priorities. They need to promote public health. They need to activate spaces. And if a private space are putting barriers or limiting some of those functions, then maybe they have to adjust to become part of that public market sort of infrastructure that we want to build together. They also build social networks. And when we talk about farmers markets or any other type of markets, people tend to think of the customers only. But what markets do is something that I call functional encounters. They create encounters with diverse people. And that could be a vendor and another vendor. It could be a vendor with a customer. It can be a customer with a customer who has not have a great conversation about hunting the perfect tomato in the tomato season. So that's what happens. They build social networks. And when they become recurrent, and that's why we need to have them as infrastructure, when they become something that you visit on a regular basis, it becomes to really flourish and build places that make people feel welcome, increase the sense of belonging, activate the possibilities to participate, empower people to think about new models. And so that's where public markets, and especially those new incubator markets, activate local entrepreneurship, because a person that visits a market that sees another vendor similar to them with a new idea, trying a product, will think, hey, I can do it. And it's only a few blocks from my home. So maybe as a single mom, I can come and think of having an additional income because I'm participating in my neighborhood market. A difference between a public market and a farmer's market, which again, I always compare because I want to make sure people are aware of the differences and the similarities as well, is that public markets welcome all types of vendors. So this idea of reseller that many times in Toronto has seen as a bad word is welcome. We want to have merchants that are good traders. They know how to sell, but they focus in local sourcing. So this is the journey we want to do. And so what's the potential? The potential is to build the public distribution infrastructure that supports equitable access to fresh, nutritionally, culturally appropriate, locally produced, and big word, locally produced. We know that public markets are good at short supply chains for all residents, as well as catalyze and provide economic opportunities to the urban entrepreneur and the rural entrepreneur. And so we know that over the years, lack of investment in that infrastructure, that regional infrastructure, has dismantled our effective way and efficient way to produce and distribute locally. Many times the apples that we eat in grocery stores are priced by Washington State because of our complexities of our supply chains. So what's the impact of this dismantling? We now have large grocery chains that are operating locally, nationally, and internationally, and have become gatekeepers of our food system. Their procurement practices prioritize food imports, the complexities of their supply chains, limit access to small and medium producers. At the same time, grocery stores choose where they want to set up. So grocery stores are not distributed equally across our city, limiting access, especially in Toronto, in our suburbs. Also, retail concentration impacts the price the producer gets and the price the consumer access. And so we need to rebuild that infrastructure, and starting with what we have is the strategy that we need to advance. So I'm going to give you a bit of a context of the work and research that I have done over the years. My research, as I said before, is anchored in practice and it's anchored in co-creation. That's why it's taken so long. I know and I have experienced the impact of the Evergreen Brickworks Farmers Markets. As Joe mentioned, I led that project for 10 years. And I know also the challenges. One thing is one successful farmers market, but what I want is hundreds of successful neighborhood markets. And for that, we need policy solutions. And so this slide, I'm not going to spend any time, is just to share the complexity of a process when you're working in community, and the endless meetings and energy and co-creation sessions and dots that you have to put in this pathway or journey or project to actually like start to integrate the voices of everyone. And so many times I'm the one speaking, but really it should be all the market managers from the 105 markets across our city that we have engaged through this work, as well as some municipal staff and counselors and academics. So again, now I'm going to refer a little bit, and I'm going to start moving a little bit faster because I have less time than expected. So one of the principles of market cities is that it needs to be anchored in regional supply. And a few years ago in 2019, I went to London to present on the work on market cities in Toronto. And I was thrilled to share with the world about the Greenbelt and how the Greenbelt is an asset that we should leverage when we're thinking about Toronto as a market city. But also at that point, I identified some of the challenges that we have of not having regional policies on food supply. And so while this project is supported by the Golden Horseshoe Food and Farming Alliance, because they're really curious about regional integration and really want to work with economic development and planning to create new models that advance sustainable food systems. Currently, there's very limited ways that the city will care for the region and the region will care for the city. And we see that with stories in the government today, where we're like removing land from agriculture to build houses, or paving our farmland to build highways that we don't need. And so again, how does Toronto, being a market city, help advocate for that regional supply that we all need to be resilient and sustainable in the long run? We can't talk about public markets without shifting from what normally people see as community spaces that are great to have fun and meet with friends, to really shift the mindset into retail and retail infrastructure. And so this is a very, very visual example of the messiness of the retail system that we have. And so as I mentioned before, 70% of our grocery, our retail sort of distribution is dominated by large multinationals. We spoke about the problems with that. The other 24% is independent grocery stores that I see as allies, because many times the products and businesses that start and are incubated at markets then need wholesale opportunities, and the only places where they can grow and scale up is at those independent retail stores. Unfortunately, we have seen consolidation in that too, and that creates more problems and makes this work more important. And the other large bubble that you see there, which is totally incomplete, it's the messiness of our 6%. So 6% is alternatives. It's what's supporting what we all want, which is a sustainable food system or a localized food system. And so that 6% includes food co-ops, CSAs, farm stands, and it also includes markets. We do not have data, consistent data across our city around the impact of markets. I'll share some of the things that I have learned, but definitely we have a lot of people involved in that 6%, and we need a strategy to make them work together and cohesively so that we can build a sector. This is some of the work. Again, another principle of market cities is making visible what we have and really understanding the current challenges. So we have a couple of documents that we have been sort of working on over the years. In 2019, this is a report that we did with Project for Public Spaces. It was in the middle of COVID, so it was a bit messy. It was supposed to be a lot more participatory, but COVID presented some challenges, but also some opportunities, because we actually got to live the barriers that public markets experience on a regular basis when the province did not allow markets to operate, because they did not consider them retail, they considered them a special event. So we had to spend 6 months advocating for those markets to start, while grocery stores operated without rules or guidance immediately, and they were able to develop those rules and guidelines through the practice of implementing COVID protocols. The second document is my research, again, an ongoing document. I haven't published it yet, but it will soon when I have time, because I'm on the ground all the time. And the last is, I'm going to speak a little bit more in the next slides. It's the development of a public market strategy. This is spearheaded by Michael Wilson in the room, economic development, and we'll speak about opportunities for you to participate. So about our markets. So this is a map that I did for my research. It creates a typology analysis. It shows where our markets are located. We have an interactive map that people can access that links with income, density, transit, BIAs, and other things. But yeah, Toronto has 105 markets. Most of the markets or 84% of the vendors that are participating in markets are focused on food, either food growing, prepared foods, or food artisans. A lot, more than 50% of the vendors are women. We're doing a great job in engaging immigrants at markets, and we do have to do a better job at engaging Indigenous peoples as well as BIPOC. However, I want to put a note, because Black urban entrepreneurs, especially food growers, have seen an increase in number in participation in markets across our city, given that we've really talked about equity and inclusion at farmers markets, and we have a new document around how to build more, increase access. And we've seen already like the result of just making people aware, making managers aware. And that's another thing that markets are good at. They're nimble at reacting. They're nimble at saying, you know what, we see a problem. How can we fix it? And so it's really important to have that dialogue so that we can fix the problems that we have, as opposed to create spaces of opposition and tension. And so I like having research so that practitioners in the ground can actually address the concerns. I'm going to speak very quickly around the typology analysis. And why is this important? Because when we do a typology analysis, we build the relationships between infrastructure, recurrence, and ability and access. And so a market that has limited infrastructure and is not there on a regular basis will definitely be considered more likely as a special event, because people do not go and shop on a weekly basis there. So again, if we want to provide more opportunities for entrepreneurs, we want to ensure that we have local food in our city, we need to create better infrastructure and more permanent infrastructure for those markets to flourish. And so our city has only one municipal market. We can have two. There's a St. Patrick's market. It's a public building currently not being used as a public market, so that's a potential. So we only have 1.5 public markets. A municipal market. We do have 5 temporary or permanent markets, and those are places like Downsview Park that has a fresh merchants market, a flea market, and we have a few food halls. Those are sort of markets that have permanent infrastructure for the delivery of a market. Things like loading docks, things like proper electricity, things like booths, things like storage. Those are the things that make it a permanent market. 70 permanent markets, we only have 9. And those are examples such as Scatting Court, Market 707, where you have containers that help vendors have a permanent space. They're still temporary because they are container markets. The Bazaar, the Thorncliffe Women's Bazaar, as well as, for example, Evergreen's awning and shed, where markets are delivered regularly and have infrastructure that supports the delivery. Most of our markets in our city are temporary markets, and they happen at public parks. That's around 80% of our markets. Mobile markets and market networks are led by food share, with the good food markets as an example of a network. So it means markets that operate on a similar way, and they benefit from scaling because their model has been practiced by many, and therefore they can improve consistently across one type of market. Wholesale markets are very important. We only have the amazing Ontario food terminal, which not only serves our markets, but also all our greengrocers across our city, and super important to ensure that we can have more control of our food supply. And market districts are an ever-evolving concept. So recently, St. Lawrence Market declared the area around their market a market district. Kensington Market is a traditional one. Chinatown, Little India, those are examples as market districts. And when we all bring them together and we start making intentional connections between all those types of markets, it's when we become a market city. And that's the work that we need to do. These are 6 recommendations and 30 actions that emerge from my research and my consultation process. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I'll share this presentation. People can send me questions if they want to learn more. What are the actions? Our focus currently is in education and promotion because of the conference, as well as building. Really, our focus it's in a little bit in H1, because permits and regulations will link to the strategy that will help us advance this work. Building a sector is about building the network and sort of doing projects together. Infrastructure is about building the social infrastructure and the physical infrastructure. And equitable access is where we put our projects first. So our priority, or my priority, is around the periphery, not the downtown core. So I'm going to speak to the emerging initiative. So Market City TO is an emerging initiative that I am stewarding. The whole purpose of this organization is to make visible the soul of our city through our neighborhood markets. We work with market managers, vendors, city staff, researchers, and policymakers to activate the power of markets. And we have a commitment to make it equitable, and a commitment to provide economic opportunities and center our projects and entrepreneurs and customers as co-creators of this initiative. We have a theory of change, and that's how we make decisions around what type of programs and projects and activities we do. Because of the nature of our ecosystem, I brought together advocacy, a coalition framework. Because we have to do advocacy. We have to build a sector. We have to increase our voice so that people hear us, and so that the city hears us, and we become a viable option when thinking about transitioning to sustainable and localized systems. Also, grassroots organizing, because most of our markets are grassroots. Most of our markets in Toronto are led by community champions with limited support, that care about their community, that have strong ties with the residents they serve. And that's why we need to build a sector. And that's why I thought these two really speak to the idea of what we have to be doing. We have to build capacity. We have to develop champions or empower champions. We have to advocate. We have to change beliefs that we're just an event. And we have to bring the public into this conversation. My approach is a network approach. Every meeting, every project, everything that I do is about building mini networks and making connections. And this is a messy process. Not a lot of people understand it. I draw from examples in Europe. If you want to check Urbact, Urbact is a amazing city project, city network project in the EU, and they have a network building process that focuses either on communication networks, production networks, and alignment networks. And so traditionally, farmers markets are communication networks. They just share what they're doing. For us to really build a sector and change the way we do things, we need to get to a production network. And that's why my approach is project-based, where we work together on a project, on an issue, in a place to actually make that change happen, and then share the findings, the knowledge, the experience to the broader network through a communication tool so that they can act it and build on those skills and implement in their area, but not start from scratch, which is one of the biggest challenges with social innovation. We all are disconnected. You will see, well, I'm not, this is my approach. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, and I'm just going to show you a couple of projects that we're doing now. So as I said before, it's project-based. So the first project is the 11th International Public Market Conference. The key partners are the key partner is Project for Public Spaces, who owns the asset, City of Toronto, St. Lawrence Complex, Greenbelt Markets. And then we have an array of partners from across the city, from across Canada, that are helping make the conference happen. The Scarborough Neighborhood Fresh Food Market, I'll speak to that in a few minutes. The Market City TO Working Group, which is, again, as an emerging organization, I believe in co-creation. It's messy. It gives me a headache every night. I'm always stressed thinking about it would be much easier to just have a framework and a governance model and do it my way, but it wouldn't be resilient over time. And so it's about encouraging ownership and shared ownership of this so that it moves away from a marina project to a citywide project that everyone wants to participate, own, and contribute. It's horizontal in its nature. And the last is the Scarborough Market Box Initiative, which I'll speak a little bit in the next slides. Sorry, did anyone ask a question? Okay, sorry, I'm just going to move fast again. So the Scarborough Freshwood pilot is something that it's a project that we did over the summer with Jennifer Ford. She is the founder of Scarborough Farmers Markets, and her company is Red Onion, or her non-for-profit is Red Onion Events. She is like the nodule, like the first anchor in our network creation process. This means a market manager that raises their hand, that wants to work on an issue, and I, as a backbone support, help her bring the stakeholders together and the resources to make it happen. Without her, this project would not exist. Market City TO plays that role of strategic partner and resourcer, and obviously supported by the City of Toronto and Golden Horseshoe Food and Farming Alliance that provided the funds. So we recognized the issue. We knew we wanted to start in Scarborough. The blue dots are grocery stores in Scarborough. The yellow dots are markets in Scarborough. As you can see, there are none. Thanks to Jen, we have 5 more markets in Scarborough. And so many of the things that are highlighted in this slide are things that all of the people in this room know about, because it's been in the news a lot. And so we need to fix it. And this is an approach to fixing it. So it's bringing interconnected programs, a market, market box program, which is a complementary currency, and aggregate table to ensure that we have produce at these neighborhood markets. And so this combination of this interaction is really important. These are some photos of the implementation, where the market box, the signage that we created, the aggregate table, an urban grower that was selling at the market, and it was an amazing experience. We delivered, we supported 5 markets across the whole season. We supported around 10 to 15 vendors, mainly BIPOC, and we engage 6 community partners helping us disseminate the market box, which is the complementary currency. So basically households, food insecure households, were identified by the partners, and every household would receive $20 a week to come and spend at the market. We impacted 110 households. We disseminated around 13,000 market bucks, and we engage around 15 to 20 Ontario producers in the aggregate table. And so the Market Bucks initiative works with the Ontario Food Table because one of the challenges that Jennifer had at her markets was the inability to ensure a grower could be at the market, because those neighborhood markets are emerging, are new, they don't have enough traffic, or residents don't have enough income. And so making sure that we have Ontario fresh food is a priority. And through an aggregate model, we help farmers stay farming, and we train youth and urban growers to be the ambassadors at the table. And therefore, we have an image of Helen. She's an urban grower from Malvern. She sold at our table, but she was also the salesperson. She sold her produce, but she also was managing the booth. This allowed us to engage 9 youths, and we worked with 2 hub or aggregators, 100-kilometer Foods and Graze and Gather, ensuring that all the produce at that table was 100% Ontario. Therefore, and we paid a fair price, so the price that the grower was asking for, and we only marked up 10% to ensure that the produce was still affordable. We have lots of lessons, and we will have a report ready and early next year that we can share with everyone around the benefits both of a Market Bucks initiatives as well as the aggregate table. The other project that I want to speak about is the conference. As Joe mentioned, we applied 3 times to host this conference in Toronto. For me, it's about bringing experts into our city, global experts into our city, helping our local experts connect with that international community, build transnational networks of knowledge, inspire our locals and our internationals with the amazing work happening in community, and get city staff and politicians to pay attention. And so we have been working in the conference since August, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. So we have a conference program, breakout sessions. We received 81 applications from around the 20 different countries from around the world. Currently, there's a committee, an international committee, reviewing all the proposals and organizing the panels. We will have 2 full afternoons with a traditional break panel discussion on different topics, as well as an conference, which is more of a workshop. All of this is an opportunity to really, from my perspective, is further advance research on Toronto markets and make connections with the international work. And I see a lot of opportunities for academics to loop into this work so that we can link policy, link research, and make this sort of 12 sort of topics that we will have due to the mobile workshops, really the emerging of 12 networks on issues that we want to be working on together. We have tours, so we're designing the tours now. And we have reception, so great networking event. And so this is a little bit about the conference. The topics are aligns with the experience that PPS has had over the years of what practitioners and academics and policymakers, as well as developers from the private sector and market managers and operators from the non-for-profit sector are interested in talking. Many of these are relevant to people that are in this room today or have knowledge on those areas. So again, helping us link and connect the dots is really a great opportunity. And the last thing I wanted to touch on is opportunities for you to participate. So we're working currently, well, Michael Wolfson is leading the application for a Toronto Urban Fellow program that will help us with the development of the public market strategy. If we have any urban fellow in this room, City of Toronto Urban Fellow, please apply. We'd love to work with you. That person will work with us 6 months, both in the conference as well as in the development of the strategy, which we hope to launch or at least have really finalized to further sort of finalize in the conference. We want to create first public-facing Toronto public market. So my goal is to have a tool that it's launched at the conference that people can see and then can benefit the 2023 market season. We're working on a Markets of Market event where all markets from across the city will be part of the closing ceremony. And we want to make sure that this is part of the kickoff of our outdoor season. We want to link, as I said before, researchers and policies to the conference themes and breakout sessions and mobile workshops. So we are collaborating with the team at Culinaria to do a session in February that will help us build those linkages. Obviously, students are welcome to the conference and support the delivery. We'll need lots of people helping us make this happen in the rooms, taking notes, helping visitors have a great experience, and supporting market managers leading workshops across our city. And obviously, we will be working on an evaluation and framework with PPS sometime in February. And we will need help with that evaluation approach, as well as with the reporting and after the conference. So last but not least, I want to thank you for being here, for listening, for contributing. And I want to thank my partners, the City of Toronto, as well as the Golden Horseshoe Food and Farming Alliance and the University of Toronto Scarborough that has always been there for me and helped me sort of expand and share the work that I'm doing. Because again, education and knowledge is key to really changing this perception of what markets are and the potential of Toronto as a market city.
Yeah, I'm going to consolidatedly take, the points that Marina can reply in a bunch since we are short on time. Sarah, I saw another hand somewhere. Okay, Sarah.
Okay, very briefly, thank you, Marina. So enjoyed your presentation. I learned so much. And my very quick question is, how do you create, how are you working to get allies across the sector that might see it as competition? For example, in my neighborhood, rumor has it that the health foods, the organic health food store hates the market because they see their sales drop when the farmers market is open in the summer. So how do you bring that mid-size infrastructure that is already there on board to support the market city vision? And I know it's beyond farmers markets, but I'm sure that's something that you're coming up against.
So Sarah, your question is great, and it's really difficult, to be honest. I think a lot of it is having data, because we have to debunk that myth, because it's many times it's the narrative of one that dominates the conversation, when there's a lot of research across the world, but not Toronto specific, on the impact of farmers markets in bringing traffic and bringing economic development and bringing new people and really creating a destination that really benefits the brick and mortar spaces. But that sort of tension between the brick and mortar that is the one that pays taxes and pays rent versus the market is there. And I think the only way that we are gonna turn it around is with doing some concrete data analysis, data harvesting, and engaging those independent stores in the conversation. The BIAs should be the first stop. I did a presentation on the public markets conference to 81 members, the 81 BIAs in the city of Toronto. Some of them reacted really positively, and there's a few BIAs that are really great with markets. And I think everything that I do is about celebrating those that are doing leadership work. And so maybe that's the starting point, really engaging those BIAs that are doing good work and that believe in markets, helping them do it even better and capture some impact of the markets in their neighborhoods. And so that's would be my approach, but it's challenging.
Okay. Oh, Jackie, yes.
I have a question just to follow up on Sarah's, and thank you, Marina, for this wonderful presentation. I'm wondering if you can say a little bit more about the plans for the conference in June, and if and how opportunities for community members will be kind of opened up, and how community members can participate who might not be stakeholders in the public market system, but might want to learn more.
So in terms of people, researchers that and practitioners that want to participate, we still have the mobile workshops call for submission open. So that means that we are looking for mobile workshops that are across our city. They're not hosted in the main venue, which is St. Lawrence Market. A mobile workshop is a 3-hour workshop in a place led by a community or a local organization, individually or collectively, on an issue they want to talk about. And we are being very broad. Some examples of mobile workshops are, for example, Flemo Farm, led by Foodshare, will showcase their urban agriculture farm, will create a farm stand and invite a few local businesses to read and bring together 3 good food market managers to talk about how do you approach good foods markets in different ways. So again, we're not being very, other mobile workshops that we're doing, for example, is I had a call with Plaza Pops, and most likely they're going to host a mobile workshops on like different types of retail. And so I think by broadening the understanding of what is a market and innovation in the retail landscape, we can start bringing people that traditionally wouldn't be part of this conversation as part of this conversation. So if you're interested in learning more about mobile workshops, send me an email. Other ways that they can participate. Currently, as I gave a little bit of a list at the end of this presentation, I know we're going to do partnerships with the university to have students be part. But if you have ideas, send me an email. I'm a yes person. If you tell me what are the skills, what are the areas that you want to be part, I try to map them and connect them to the right task. So yeah, that would be my approach.
Marina, we are preparing a pitch for the mobile workshops from SF3, which will be about markets, past, present, futures. So, but we have Michael Wolfson from the city of Toronto, and that'll be the last question before we break for lunch.
No, I just wanted to add on to Sarah's question, in that if it was a thoughtful retailer, the farmers markets are only serving their constituents or their customers for how many 5 months? So where are they going for the rest of the year? And if so, if that health food store was working with the farmers market to support it, they could basically gain those customers for the remainder of the year, and also the spillover from getting them in the area, as Marina said, getting people who are not normally out to that area there to help promote the local businesses within the area. So it's just a mindset that some retailers have, that it's competitive as opposed to helping them in the long run.
Bye, everybody. Enjoy the food and have a lovely rest of the day. And hopefully you all are cheering for Argentina this afternoon.